Allied shipping at Bari, a seaport on the Italian Adriatic coast, was bombed on the night of December 2nd. About 25 enemy aircraft took part in the attack. 2 ammunition vessels were hit, and their explosions started fires on adjacent ships. Enemy aircraft used radar jamming devices. Firefighting crews fought the blaze from water as well as on land. But despite their efforts, 17 Allied merchant vessels totaling over 60,000 tons were lost. 4 Beaufighters were airborne, but no claims were made by them or by anti-aircraft batteries. The large chunks of metal are from ships which exploded in the harbor and were blown onto the wharves. Polish seamen were rescued from one of the merchantmen. Also among the survivors were these Polish women, members of another merchant crew. This building was demolished by a direct hit. The damage throughout the city was severe, as were the casualties among its 250,000 people. American, British, and Italian crews collaborated in rescue work. This was one of the worst blows delivered to Allied shipping since Pearl Harbor. By September 27th, our forces occupied Foggia, the principal base for the German Air Force in Italy. The field had been blasted incessantly by our planes. Among the wreckage of their aircraft, the Nazis had placed countless mines and booby traps. Our mine detector crews systematically worked down the field immediately after the occupation. Here they probe around with bayonets and uncover a mine. An engineer finds a cache of dynamite and black powder boxes partially protruding from the side of a gravel pit. The crew digs around the pit wall, scrapes away the loose earth, and discovers a store of Italian explosives. A detonator charge is found within the excavation. By removing the wire, the detonator is disarmed. The boxes of powder and dynamite are removed from the pit and carried away. A bulldozer fills in a former enemy explosive dump by shoveling tons of earth into the pit. Another bulldozer removes dirt for a runway. Another bulldozer helps a turnipole over a difficult spot. A ditch 3,000 feet long and 2.5 feet deep was constructed in 2 days, the purpose of which is to drain water from the runways and taxi strips. Caliche, a soft limestone, is used for surfacing and filling in runways and taxi strips. When rolled and packed, it forms a hard and cement-like surface. Italian soldiers and workers helped spread the caliche. Constructed for heavy bombers, the runway has a caliche base and a steel plank. It is 6,000 feet long and 100 feet wide. The Italians, working under the supervision of American engineers, carry the planks and lay them into position. The entire construction job was under the supervision of the 845th Aviation Engineers. On November 11th, shipping in the harbor at Rabaul was subjected to one of the most sustained air attacks ever launched in the Southwest Pacific. More than 300 Allied land and carrier-based planes took part. This is Rabaul Harbor. P-38s go after one of the 75 Japanese planes that attempted to intercept the attack. Enemy planes were shot down. We lost 14, but the crews of several of these were saved. Through heavy ack-ack, an enemy warship is attacked. The cruiser desperately continues evasive action. The raids resulted in the sinking of one cruiser and 2 destroyers and damaging a second cruiser and 11 destroyers. A P-38H and a Hamp keep fairly close together in a climb starting at 5,000 feet. When the Hamp reaches 10,000 feet, the P-38H is at 11,000 and 1.25 miles in front of the Jap fighter. On a right or left turn, the Hamp can stay well inside of a P-38H at 20,000 feet. When well into such turns, which were started at 200 miles per hour, the Hamp indicated 140 miles an hour, while the P-38H indicated 150 miles an hour. If a P-38H overtakes a Hamp and the Jap fighter pulls up into a steep chandelle, loop, or whip stall, the P-38H can follow safely only about 1/2 of the way through the maneuver. As long as a Hamp is forced to exceed its best operational speed, it can be outclimbed and outmaneuvered by the P-38H and most other Allied fighters. The Hamp has a maximum estimated speed of 352 miles per hour at 17,000 feet. A P-38H is approximately 20 miles an hour faster at the same altitude. The day's tests completed, the Hamp is carefully stored away for further operational and engineering study. "40 Japanese planes bombed Calcutta on December 5th. The railroad line was damaged and the underground communication system was disrupted. This British convoy was bracketed between 2 heavy incendiary bombs. Hits were scored on warehouses and buildings. The coolie quarters were damaged, and 560 civilians were killed by the anti-personnel bombs dropped by the Japs. The damage was concentrated on the dock area. 2 of the bombers were shot down in the Bay of Bengal, and 4 were listed as probables. The crew of a C-46, which carried a cargo of coffee, butter, and sugar, was forced to bail out over the Naga Hill country near the Burma-India border, south of the Brahmaputra River. These natives, former headhunters, guided the crew back to Chabwa. Their names are Waban, Silang So, Jodabul No, Shroad Nang, his brother Silang Nang, and Naham Kiss. The 4 crew members had bailed out within a period of 6 seconds at 14,000 feet. They all landed within a 5-minute walk of each other, about 7 miles from the ship. After being lost for 12 days and subsisting on fish and fruit, they discovered a raft made of bamboo and sailed down the river for 1.5 miles, where they met the Nagas, who understood some English and Hindustani. The natives fed the crew cold rice, hot tea with sugar, and chicken curry. In turn, the Americans treated the Nagas' infected feet with sulfa drugs. All through the journey back, the treatment was continued. On the 14th day, they arrived at the 72-mile post on the Lido Road, where they were picked up and taken to Chabwa. For services rendered, the Nagas were well paid in addition to being given clothes and equipment. The natives and the flyers parted good friends as the Nagas returned to the hill country. These B-24s are on a mission that constituted part of a 10-day aerial attack on Burma. On this particular raid, attention was concentrated on wharves and the railroad depot at Rangoon. The yak-yak was heavy, and the interception the strongest yet encountered. This area was subjected to intense and continuous Allied bombing. "24 liberators head through flak on a mission to Chowk, 150 miles north of Rangoon. They plastered an oil refinery and storage tanks with 500-pound bombs. These Boston bombers are flown by Free French squadrons stationed in England. Here, the A-20s are flown in low-level attacks over northern France. Coming in at minimum altitude, they concentrated their bombing attacks on industrial areas. Dutch squadrons flying B-25s at medium altitudes attack harbor installations in Nazi Europe. Canadian Halifaxes and RAF Lancasters join in a night raid on Wuppertal, about 40 miles east of Cologne, in the western industrial section of the Rhineland. Dyes, small tools, and chemicals are produced in this area. Headquarters of an airdroppers company at Dinjan, near Chabwa. In this depot, supplies and equipment are stored to be dropped by parachute to air warning stations and advanced patrols situated deep in the Burma jungles. The personnel of the airdroppers company is composed of pilots who formerly flew materiel from India to China over the hump. A new method had to be devised whereby special containers and parachutes designed to carry large loads could be transported by C-47s and dropped at their destinations. This new equipment was made on the spot with native material and labor. Bamboo is cut and woven into baskets. Because of weather conditions, the parachutes must be dried frequently. This system has been improved to a point where by using one or more parachutes, anything can be dropped from rice to radio transmitters or 75-millimeter howitzers. In these packing sheds, food is prepared for parachute delivery. Rice husks are used to absorb the shock of landing. Finally, the parachute is attached and the basket is ready for delivery. This transmitter will be dropped to an advanced radio patrol station. The wrapped radio is placed in a well-padded basket, which is sewed up preparatory to being shipped. "50-gallon oil drums are cushioned with bags of rice husks prior to putting the parachutes in place. Loaded with drums of oil, gasoline, and water, the truck leaves the packing sheds for the flying field, where the supplies will be loaded on the C-47s. Massacre Bay, Attu. While the steamship MacArthur was being towed to anchor in the outer area of Massacre Bay, the hawser broke and strong southeast winds set her aground. A tug attempted to push the MacArthur to deeper water. Unable to move the heavy vessel, the aid of the Coast Guard cutter Citrus was enlisted. A rope was prepared to be carried from the cutter to the grounded vessel. The line was carried by tug to the cutter. The other end was thrown aboard the MacArthur and made fast. When the slack was pulled in, the cables were securely attached and the signals were exchanged with the cutter. As the Citrus began to pull, the lines were kept taut, and as the tide came in, the MacArthur was slowly moved. Target, Nam Sang. "30 B-24s with an escort of 25 P-40s were on this mission to bomb the Nam Sang airdrome. "40 tons of bombs were dropped from an altitude of 15,500 feet. They hit the runways, revetments, and field installations, starting many fires. Several enemy planes were destroyed on the ground. The P-40s also hit nearby Laika airfield, wrecking 3 enemy aircraft and starting fires throughout the area. Target, Miita Bridge. On December 12th, Miita Bridge, 26 miles south of Mandalay, was bombed. 4 squadrons of B-24s loaded with 1,000-pound bombs took off from Pandaveswa, Pandar, and Pandagar, followed by 18 B-25s. 23 P-38s acted as escort. Thousand-pounders dropped from an altitude of 18,000 feet, plastered the railroad bridge, hitting approaches and tracks. Light and inaccurate anti-aircraft fire was encountered. Immediately after the bomb run, 8 to 10 Zeros attacked the B-24s. The P-38s went into action, and although the attack lasted for 40 minutes, no B-24s were lost. On their way back to their respective bases, 3 of the B-24s with casualties on board landed at an advanced British air base at Chittagong, where the wounded men were taken to a base hospital. Target, U.S. Air Base, Yunnan near Kunming. On December 20th, the U.S. Air Base at Yunnan in the Kunming area was attacked by 18 Sallies, 40 Oscars, and some Zeros. During the bombing run, mortar-type shells were fired from the tails of the Sallies, which caused explosions at points 100 yards to the rear of the formation. 4 P-40s and 1 B-24 were hit on the ground. The pilot of this P-40 was badly burned as the result of the raid. This is all that remained of the P-40. Our fighters destroyed 5 Jap planes, 9 probables, and 5 damaged. 1 P-40 was severely damaged in aerial combat. These Chinese children, guided by soldiers, are on their way to look at the remains of a wrecked Zero shot down during the raid. A Jap wing insignia becomes a souvenir. This was a Zero's pilot. This wreckage was once a Mitsubishi 99. The Jap bomber was scattered all over the hillside. This is the Mitsubishi's pilot. On December 22nd, the Yunnan Air Base was attacked a second time by 17 Sallies and more than 40 Oscars. The Sallies again fired mortar-type shells. The shells burst into fragments, which resulted in smaller explosions. 7 P-40s intercepted south of Kunming, and 28 fighters intercepted over the field. 18 enemy planes were destroyed, 17 probables, and 14 damaged. One C-47 and 1 P-40 were burned on the ground. A P-40 was missing, and 4 more damaged in combat. Target, U.S. Airdrome, Hengyang. 11 Lilies and 30 Oscars, plus an additional escort, attacked our airdrome at Hengyang, 200 miles northeast of Guilin. 31 P-40s intercepted the formation and destroyed 3 bombers and 9 fighters. 9 enemy aircraft were probably destroyed and 17 more damaged against the loss of 2 P-40s. Six P-38s engaged the Zero escort, 2 of which were probably shot down and 2 more damaged. No P-38s were lost. Bombs hit the west side of the field, damaging a control building and firing an oil drum. Barracks were also damaged. Little damage was done to the field itself, although the area was covered with duds and time bombs. We lost 2 P-40s, one of which crashed on takeoff, and a B-25. The coolies immediately set to work to fill in the bomb craters and remove the debris. There were no hits on the runway itself, and little damage was done to the field. Jorat is approximately 100 miles southwest of Chabwa and 480 miles northeast of Calcutta. The aerodrome is 5 miles from the town of Jorat and is one of the major air bases for the transportation of supplies into China. Operations are maintained here on a 24-hour basis, and everything from torn-down ambulances to cans of baking powder is sent by air. Gasoline is the biggest problem. Thousands of gallons a day are consumed by the transports. The planes most used are converted Liberator bombers, C-87s. They return from China loaded with wolframite, a tungsten ore, or perhaps hog bristles. The ATC flyers are called crippled pigeons because the ships they fly can't fight back at the Jap Zeros. The main cargo is gasoline and bombs, the C-87s carrying as much as 10,000 pounds at a time. In addition, they transport large crates of Navy supplies destined for the Yangtze-Kiang patrol. The C-87's engines are seldom cool until it's time for the 100-hour inspection. Chabwa is 100 miles closer to the hump and is the center of operations, maintenance, and supplies for this air transport service to China. A copy of the freight manifest for one day may show 200 different types of items. At this air freight depot, natives unload Allison engines for P-40s. Engines for our air bases throughout China await shipment. These storage sheds house spare parts. They were formerly used to store dried tea leaves. Natives roll gasoline drums from the boxcars to a gasoline dump. The shed is jammed with ammunition and small bombs. This bomb dump contains 100, 300, and 500-pounders. Natives load 500-pounders onto a 6x6 truck, which will cart them to a waiting plane. This C-46 will fly the 500-pounders over the hump. Other C-46s carry electrical equipment, aircraft tires, and a variety of miscellaneous supplies. A bulky ambulance truck body is stowed in the fuselage of the C-46. Such cargo is not popular with the crew, since it cannot be jettisoned if difficulties are encountered en route. C-46s also haul dismantled PT airplanes. A cargo ship is refueled in preparation for its flight over the hump. Some 150,000 gallons of gasoline are stored in underground tanks and is pumped out as needed. Cargo from the United States, halfway around the world, is about to start on the last leg of its journey to China. Moambari and Sukriting, two nearby airfields, relieve the traffic congestion at Jorat and Chabwa. Both fields are always busy, the mechanics working day and night to keep their planes in shape. This is Moambari. Sukriting is the last American field in India. Like Moambari, it handles an enormous amount of supplies and air traffic. In addition, a number of fighter planes are based there. Flying over the Naga Hills, former headhunter territory, the C-46 wings its way toward the hump and Kunming. Target, Buka Airdrome. This was one of the series of raids conducted against Buka during the first week in January. The enemy's logistical system was continually attacked, and excellent results were obtained. Patrolling surface vessels were sighted en route. At the Sukriting Airport near Dumduma, about 40 miles north of Chabwa, a ground crew of the 10th Air Force services an A-36. A homemade bamboo bomb carrier eases the job of hauling the 500-pounders to the airplane and lifting them in place in the bomb racks. After the bombs are secured, the fins are attached. Both tail and nose fuses are then installed and safetied. Short belts of 50 caliber ammunition are broken up. Both the belt links and the cartridges are given a thorough cleaning and inspection. Using the hand loader, armorers then reassemble the cleaned bullets and links. When the process is completed, the ammunition belts are packed in boxes and carted to the waiting airplane. Here, the plane's ammunition containers are filled and placed in the wing wells, ready for immediate use. The Hells Point bomb and ammunition dump at Guadalcanal goes up in flames. From their bases in England, 3 French squadrons flying Boston bombers prepare to leave on a low-level mission to Dinant, France, where steel factories operate 24 hours a day for the Nazi war machine. This time, the target for the Bostons is Chevier-Larue. At Dinjan Airfield, 5 miles from Chabois, C-47s of the 2nd Troop Carrier Squadron line up and prepare to take off on one of their regular Parapac food-dropping missions. Some of these airplanes have been in service for over a year, dropping essential supplies and food to air warning stations, weather stations, Chinese patrols, Lido Road engineering parties, and advanced hospitals. Units that operate so deep in the Burma jungle that it's virtually impossible to keep them supplied by ordinary means. In many cases, the more permanently established advanced bases receive their supplies by a regular daily dropping schedule without the necessity of special orders. These planes operate over the jungles of the Naga Hills, which lie astride the border of northeastern India and northwestern Burma. The first run over the target is a blank to help the pilot estimate the wind drift and to warn the ground personnel to clear the dropping area, for men have been killed by falling supplies. Supplies to be dropped are stacked by the open door, light bundles on the bottom, heavy containers on top, to reduce the possibility of the slipstream carrying away the light parcels as the pilot comes in to make his run. On the co-pilot signal, the supplies are kicked and pushed out and down. This is a hazardous procedure as the parachutes are apt to foul the tail of the plane. Whether the dropping stations or targets are perched on the top of mountain ridges or hidden deep in sharp valleys, for successfully parachuting supplies, the pilot must fly over the station at an altitude of between 100 and 150 feet, and at a speed of between 100 and 130 miles an hour. Greater altitude increases the risk of losing the supplies in the jungle. Greater speed increases the danger of bursting the parachute. Grain, sugar, shoes, clothing, blankets, and other supplies and equipment that can stand the shock of landing may be dropped without parachute when properly packed. After supplies are delivered to each station, the plane communicates with operations back at Dinjan, where on a large sector board, the plane's position is plotted, so that in the event the transport is forced down or attacked by Japanese interceptors, its position is immediately known. Over the next target area, the crew prepares for dropping another batch of supplies. At normal dropping speeds of between 100 and 130 miles an hour, the average maximum load for a parachute is 120 pounds, of which about 70 pounds is payload. However, very heavy items have been successfully dropped by using clusters of 2 or more 150-pound capacity parachutes. This is a Jap installation lying between 2 of our dropping stations. Jap ground troops fired on our food dropping planes. Strafing P-51s set the installation afire. A system of signal panels has been devised as a means of identification between the dropping station and the plane. This is to avoid the possibility of dropping supplies to enemy troops that might have captured the target since the previous mission. The signal panel system also affords a limited means of communication. The plane responds with colored lights or flares. The planes slowly circle each target, and with each pass, supplies are dropped. Sometimes as many as 25 passes are required before the shipment is completed. Particularly valuable shipments, such as money, medical supplies, or surgical equipment, are marked by attaching a 6-foot streamer to the parachute. Of the supplies and equipment dropped by parachute, 98% have been recovered. Great skill and split-second timing are needed to make these precision drops. Its regular dropping schedule completed for the day, the C-47 sets out across the jungle for the trip back to Dinjan. A complete and detailed report on supply and food dropping activities is now being prepared by the 1st Army Air Force's Combat Film Detachment. On December 13th, our base at Dinjan was raided by a Japanese force of 20 Sallies and approximately 25 Oscars and Zeeks. 3 bombs hit the field, causing minor damage. Although only 12 minutes warning was received prior to the raid, our fighters shot down 5 Oscars and 12 Sallies. Anti-aircraft fire accounted for an additional Sally. Two CNAC buildings were hit and set afire. Our losses were 1 P-40 shot down and 2 P-51s that crashed on takeoff. Target, Shinchiku Airdrome. On November 25th, 14 B-25s, 8 P-38s, and 7 P-51s of the 14th Air Force attacked the Japanese airdrome and staging base of Shinchiku on the northwestern coast of the island of Formosa, which lies only 100 miles off the coast of China. All planes came in 20 feet above the water to avoid radar detection until they crossed the coast of Formosa. "168 120-pound fragmentation bombs were dropped from an altitude of 1,000 feet, hitting planes parked on the runway, hangars, and repair shops. The field was also strafed by both fighters and some of the Mitchells. Target, Rabaul. Immediately preceding our landings at Cape Gloucester, the airfields at Rabaul were heavily attacked in an effort to soften up the Japanese. This unidentified clearing was photographed before the run on the target was made because it showed some possibilities of having strategic importance. On this raid on December 24th, the target was Vunakano Airfield, about 6 miles from Rabaul. 18 B-24s of the 13th Air Force, accompanied by fighter escort, heavily bombed the airfield. Anti-aircraft fire was encountered. Of the large enemy force that attempted interception, our fighters destroyed 30 enemy aircraft and 5 probables. The heavy aerial attacks on Rabaul continued, and on January 29th, a force of 20 P-24s, 25 A-24s, 15 TBFs, accompanied by 10 P-38s and 15 Corsairs, again heavily bombed the airfields. At least 7 enemy planes were destroyed on the ground. Approaching the target, intense anti-aircraft fire was encountered. A force of 20 to 30 enemy fighters attempted interception, of which 14 were destroyed. Thirteen B-24s of the 307th Bomb Group attacked the La Kunai Airdrome south of Rabaul. The liberators were accompanied by a group of 34 Lightnings and Corsairs. 25 enemy fighters intercepted. 2 were destroyed. Heavy ack-ack damaged several of our planes. 39 tons of bombs were dropped from an altitude of 20,000 feet, starting large fires. The raid took place about 20 minutes after a TBF and SBD raid. Zeros dropped many aerial phosphorus bombs in their defense of the target. Armed with 1,000-pound bombs, 15 B-24s of the 307th Bomb Group are on their way to attack the Vunakano Airdrome, 10 miles south by west of Rabaul. En route to the target from their Solomon Island base, the bombers pass over a live volcano on Bougainville Island. Corsairs and Lightnings provide fighter cover for the bombers. Ack-ack was encountered and about 30 Zeros intercepted, one of which was shot down. Although several of our planes were damaged, all returned to their bases. In spite of the fact that clouds occasionally obscured the target, hits were scored on the Vunakano runway from an altitude of 20,700 feet. "20 B-24s of the 307th Bomb Group, accompanied by fighter cover of 25 P-38s and F-4Us, bombed the Tobera airfield about 15 miles south-southeast of Rabaul. Watch for the Jap plane going down in the background. 21 of the 60 enemy aircraft that intercepted this mission were shot down. Fighter protection was very good. Ack-ack was reported as being slight. Phosphorus aerial bombs were again used. 85 tons of 1,000-pound bombs hit the runways and revetments of Tobera Field. All bombs hit the target area. All of our aircraft returned to their bases. Fiji troops manned jungle outposts on Bougainville Island. One of the two active volcanoes on Bougainville is seen from an L4 while en route to one of the many isolated outposts on the island. The only rapid means of transportation for both supplies and personnel is by air. This landing strip, for use by Cub airplanes, is 65 feet wide, 500 feet long, and was built atop a 7,000-foot ridge in the Bougainville jungles. Even for agile Cubs, the takeoff presents problems. The local natives bring in fresh vegetables and food to trade for tobacco and pieces of salvaged parachutes. Banana leaves are gathered for roofing the thatched huts and buildings of the settlement. Radio communication is maintained between this outpost and the field at Cape Torquina, as well as with the C-47s that deliver the majority of the supplies needed by the unit. The first run over the dropping area is a warning to the ground personnel to clear the target for the supplies that will be dropped on the next pass. While most of the supplies land right in the dropping area, some parachutes drift off into the jungle and must be retrieved. The rations that are dropped at this jungle headquarters also supply the several small outposts that are thrown out in a radius of about 1 mile from the main settlement. The supplies are assembled and repacked and then carried by both male and female natives to the smaller stations. Yup Bang at the North Burma front. Chinese casualties of the Burma fighting at the battlefront at Yup Bang in the Hu Quang Valley, Burma. Lieutenant General Joseph Stilwell watches as they are taken to the rear for treatment. This is Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Seagraves, head of the medical staff of the only hospital in these jungles, an American unit operating 7 miles behind the front lines. Operating tables are set up in the open, protected only by canvas roofing. Since the hospital is so close to the front lines, electricity has not yet been installed, and after dark, Treatment and operations are performed by the light of lanterns and flashlights. Because of the constant presence of snipers, most of the wounded are brought to the hospital during the night. They make the 7-mile trip over jungle trails and crude, man-carried litters. The staff of the hospital is composed of American Army personnel and Burmese nurses. Many of these nurses had been trained by Seagraves in Burma before the Japanese occupation. They learned quickly and well, and have often performed delicate operations in the field. Some of them accompanied Stilwell on his retreat from Burma in 1942. A nursing school has been established in India to train more of these Burmese girls. The casualties receive expert medical attention and are made as comfortable as possible in preparation for the long trip to Xinbuyang. At the time these pictures were taken, all casualties were carried on litters for 14 miles back to Xinbuyang, where a landing strip had been constructed for the use of L4s and L5s. Here, the wounded are carefully transferred to special stretchers and made ready for the flight to Lido, where there is a well-equipped general hospital. It takes 15 days to make the trip to Lido by foot, but these small planes make it in an hour. This is a plane of the 71st Liaison Squadron, which is based at Lido. The 71st operates 13 L4s and 4 L5s in this area. 3 of the planes have been stripped of all but the most essential equipment, so that stretchers could be carried in the small fuselage. Three other L4s ferry out casualties that can sit in the regular seat behind the pilot. In addition to this ambulance service, the 71st Liaison Squadron also performs courier duty to advanced outposts and delivers vital supplies and personnel. This is the Lido landing strip, built alongside the Lido Road about 7 miles outside of town. The strip, 2,000 feet long, was cut out of the jungle by American engineers. Ambulances drive out on the strip to meet the planes, and the patients are transferred again. This is the last stage of their journey from the front. The ambulances take them to the General Hospital at Lido. As soon as possible after the delivery of a patient, the L-4s, loaded with return cargo, take off again for Xinbuyang. Wantian, China. In order to examine and photograph a Jap Zero that had been reported shot down near Wantian, China, men from the 14th Air Force, including a member of the 16th Combat Camera Unit, proceeded by jeep westward on the Burma Road and southward on auxiliary Chinese trails to Yeoquan. Yeoquan is on a mountain, and the path to it is a block stone trail whose steps vary in height from 4 inches to a maximum of 17 inches. Approaching Yeoquan, the group was subjected to hostile gunfire, but the enemy was driven off. This was the first jeep to enter the city, and the crowd of curious natives made progress difficult. Even in this remote Chinese settlement, American personnel has already made its influence felt on the local tradespeople. From Yeoquan, the party proceeded by pack train over a mountain range to the valley town of Wantian. Here they located the stripped remains of an Oscar Mark II, but were unable to locate the Zero originally reported to be in the vicinity. During the early part of the return trip to Yeoquan, ponies were used, but later on, the journey proved too difficult for them, so the last 10 miles was made on foot. On March 8th, the 8th Air Force again raided Berlin and Faust during daylight. 550 B-17s and B-24s took part in the attack. Fighter escort was provided by 875 P-38s, P-47s, P-51s, and RAF Mustangs. En route to the target, the planes passed over an unidentified German airport. The target on this mission was a ball bearing plant at Erkner, 15 miles southwest of the heart of Berlin. 1,100 tons of bombs were dropped with good results. A considerable number of enemy fighters were encountered, of which we destroyed 125 with an additional 24 probables. Of those destroyed, our bombers shot down 42, our fighters shot down 83. We lost 38 bombers and 16 fighters. Back at the base, flares are used to help guide the planes in. This fortress had its starboard landing gear shot away during the raid and comes in for a very neat crash landing. Emergency crews take all precautions to avoid fire. Casino, Italy. P-40s of the 12th Air Force dive bomb a German stronghold on the Italian front, the monastery at Casino. These pictures were taken by an automatic camera mounted on the wing of the plane. Action has been stopped here momentarily to allow a better view of the target. At the Capodichino airfield, the men of the headquarters squadron of the 79th Fighter Group are informed of the part their group plays in the shingles operation.
Policy of the wing to let the enlisted men know what's going on up in front. And heretofore we haven't done that, and now's a good time to let you know what's going on. And for that purpose, I've had Captain Bain here condense this into a short lecture and let you know what's going on up the front.
The main concentrations of boats were made at the Naples harbor and at Salerno, just around this peninsula. We moved over onto this side for the purpose of assisting in an operation which has been designated by our command as shingle operation. HR&D day was 3 o'clock this morning, and the boats took off in a course which we have marked on the map here and proceeded into the assault beaches. The beachhead itself was a small town known as Anzio, and just approximately 2 miles east of that, another small town known as Nettuno. The operation was broken down into 4 beachhead landings. The initial invasions were carried on very successfully in this area, meeting with no enemy opposition. The part that the 79th is playing in the show at the present moment is carrying on a patrol of the convoy lanes between the Ponciani Islands and the assault beaches themselves. We're also throwing a fighter cover of 16 aircraft over the assault area itself.
The aircraft that provided cover over the assault area itself returned from their mission. The airfield is near Naples at the foot of Mount Vesuvius, which may be seen in the background. The pilots of the aircraft are questioned by the group intelligence officer.
How was the show?
Oh, pretty good show.
Good.
Pretty good show.
Did you get an ME?
Yes.
You destroyed the ME?
No, I got an FW right in here. That's right. That's one Vanderbilt show.
Yeah, I confirm
Did you
that.
confirm
I saw
that?
it going
Yeah,
there.
I got another one in
got
Yeah,
another
I
one.
saw that one go in.
You see that other one
Going in from 100 feet.
You see him bail out, or did he
No,
just go in?
he went in. I saw a couple of shoots get out right there, too. I don't know who they was.
Was he on fire?
No, he just went in on one.
Just 2 shoots.
Yeah, right here.
Van, where did you get yours?
Well, after Andy shakes 4 of them off my tail, I was Nikolai shown from there on.
Nikolai is leader of the yellow section. What did you see?
Well, saw these MEs come diving down here behind us and went down on their tail. Chased them up here as far as the lake. And I lost him in here somewhere, but got on the tail of a 190 here and got him. He went down in the water.
Did he go over on his back or
Yeah,
just
he
go in?
just rolled right over and went in. And,
Back to airspeed on that P-40, I reckon.
yeah, if I'd have had a little more, I could have caught those. Chased another 190 up this way and got up here to this field up here, a little northwest of Rome. And chased him around for a little while. That's where I got the second one. Ran out of ammo up there and had to come home.
So you claim 2 destroyed, is that right?
Destroyed, yeah.
How did you do, Pete?
Well, I got mine about halfway between here and this point in Rome. And I gave him a couple bursts and his wheel dropped down and his canopy flew off and so his chute opened and his airplane burst his wing.
He bailed out. Yours bailed out too, Van.
Yeah, that's right.
Where's May at? I mean, where'd the last see him?
I don't know where he went down.
George and I saw him last right up in here. There were about 6 Mark Wolves up there. 4 MEs.
Who else got some now?
Yeah.
Dean, what did you do?
Yeah, I was chasing 2 up in here, but I had to let one go and only got one of them. Yeah, bad luck on
You got a damage, didn't you, Jack?
Yeah, we got right about in here. We went down on 3 of them, and I was following Lieutenant Trudippo down, and one of them turned into him, and then I turned into him and shot, and pieces came off of his fuselage, and then we followed some more on up in north of Rome, and that was approximately right up in here where we ran into 6 more Fox-Wolves and 4 MEs, Captain Lee and myself.
Yeah, what happened to those up there? For Christ's sake, you didn't come home and leave them go, did you?
Well, we were out of ammunition. We were out of ammunition then. Good alibi, boy.
How does that work out, fellas? That makes 6 destroyed, 1 probable, and 1 damaged. That's a good show.
Fiji infantry patrols operate far behind the Japanese lines on Bougainville Island. Their mission is to obtain information and to harass the enemy whenever possible. Their jungle experience is invaluable, for they live off the land and are able to penetrate the thickest brush and forest with apparent ease. The jungle supplies their food: taro root, papaya, wild pumpkin, breadfruit, which is cooked in a hole scooped out of the earth and lined with wet clay. Here, stones are heated to incandescence and then covered with wet leaves. The food is cooked in this steaming oven. These people have been doing an outstanding job of scouting and reconnaissance, supplying the Allies with information of great value. Large units operate together and then separate into patrols of 4 or 5 men each. One such large group was trapped in enemy territory by a superior force of Japanese. The unit made its way to the beach and notified the Allied base of its position. A small rescue convoy consisting of 2 LCIs and 1 LCT was dispatched to pick up the scouts. Smoke signals on the shore guide the boats to the exact spot where the scouts are assembled waiting to be picked up. Speed is essential here, for the Fijis are being embarked at a point 8 miles outside the perimeter of the American beachhead. The boats are run into the shore, the ramps are lowered, and the natives hurry to get aboard. Some have been wounded in their encounter with the enemy, and some are sick, but they bring their equipment with them as they come up the ramp. When all the scouts have been picked up, the boats head for the American base at Torquay. Rations are distributed and quickly consumed, for it's days since they have eaten. The Fijis take their women and children with them on these scouting expeditions. Rescued and fed, they relax and rejoice. At Torquay on Bougainville Island, this prison camp has been constructed for the confinement of Japanese captives. Contrary to their expectations, the prisoners are treated with consideration. They are well fed, provided with soap and laundry facilities, and are allowed considerable latitude in their choice of entertainment. This homemade banjo, improvised from a mess kit, communication wire, wood and nails, was a constant source of amusement. The prisoners are examined for wounds, cuts, and diseases, and are treated by the medical detachment at Torquay. The prisoners are flattered and amazed at the excellent treatment that the MPs and the medical staff give them. Each day, certain of the prisoners are questioned by men well trained in this work. These particular men had been in China for some years prior to being shipped to the South Pacific.
Sergeant, there are specific questions I would like to ask some of these prisoners. I wish you would interpret them for me in turn.
Yes, sir. The prisoners are questioned in groups and individually under the supervision of an intelligence officer assisted by an American-born Japanese.
How long have you been on this island?
この冒頭に何ヶ月いるんですか？
冒頭には今1年ちょっとですな。
A little over a year.
How is the condition of supplies of the Japanese forces at the present time?
君たちの食用やその他食べ物ですね。はい。その状況はどうですか？
今のところはもう非常に困ってるですわな。
Very scarce, sir.
Would that be one of the reasons why you decided to come over to our side? Give yourself up.
食べ物があまりないから捕虜になる気になったんですか？
いや、そうじゃないんです。自分は。
それはどうですか？
実際はもう軍隊が入ったんですな。
そうですか。
あんま名護を使うたあげくにもうそういうダマじゃからですな。もう軍隊が入ってつまりもう日本のためにすることなかったですな。でもうこのに来た方がいいっていう腹が出たわけですな。どうせ働くなら飯も食わしてくれるような船でも働きたいっていう気が大きくくるわけですな。
He got tired of the Japanese army life. If he's going to be fed, might as well go to a unit where he'll get work and fed well.
Target, Rabaul. B-24s of the 307th Bomb Group attacked the Rapapo Airdrome at Rabaul from an altitude of 18,000 feet. There was no zero interception and very little ack-ack. Four days later, 1,000-pound bombs were dropped on the Vunakanau airfield from an altitude of 19,000 feet. Vunakanau airfield is about 10 miles southwest of Rabaul. 3 days later, B-24s of the 307th Bomb Group again attacked Rapapo Airfield. En route to the target, the formations passed over the city of Rabaul. The attacks against Rabaul continued. Rapapo Airfield was attacked again. On this mission, Rapapo, 15 miles southeast of Rabaul, was the secondary target, since the primary objective was closed in. The Vunapope power plant and supply dump was attacked by B-24s of the 307th Bomb Group from an altitude of 16,000 feet. Flak was inaccurate, and no enemy planes attempted interception. The power plant, which supplies most of the electricity for Rabaul, was destroyed, as were a repair shop and warehouses. Ammunition and fuel dumps were blown up, and more than 100 buildings were severely damaged. The target on this mission was the Jap administration buildings and radio stations in the city of Rabaul. Weather was good and the bomb run was made at an altitude of 19,700 feet. Again, there was no enemy interception. Ack was heavy but low. 4 large fires were started in the city and shipping in the harbor was hit. Planes of the 5th Bomb Group attacked Rabaul from an altitude of 13,000 feet. Below is Rabaul and Simpson Harbor. Weather conditions over the target were hazy. Flak was heavy, but there was no enemy fighter interception. B-26 bombers of the 9th Air Force stationed in England are prepared for an early morning takeoff on a mission against enemy-held territory in Europe. This is the beginning of a typical double-header day for the men of the 9th. An early start is essential, for on these days 2 missions are completed, one in the morning and another in the afternoon. Their targets usually are enemy airstrips, supply dumps, and rocket installations. As soon as they are airborne, the marauders head for their rendezvous point. Once it has been made, radio silence is maintained, and the operator takes his place at the waist guns. En route to the target, enemy anti-aircraft batteries go into action. Although the flak barrage is usually heavy and intense, the B-26s have never been turned from their target because of it. Evasive action is taken every 10 to 20 seconds, but the cost of the objective is maintained. Over the target, a German twin-engine fighter field, it's bombs away. With bomb bays empty and noses down, the Marauders head for home fast, meaning plenty of flak on the way back. This 26 makes the trip home on one engine. Over the base, they peel off and come in for their landings. This Marauder had its hydraulic system shot out. The nose wheel was locked down and the main landing gear was locked in the retracted position. The pilot, 19 years old, the youngest on the field, brought her in for an almost perfect landing. The damage was quickly repaired, and within 24 hours, the plane was back in the air. As soon as the planes land, they're lined up for servicing. Parked close together to speed up the job, the planes are ready for action within 45 minutes. While the bomb bays are being loaded with 500-pounders, the plane's crew is fed. With only 45 minutes for lunch, the men don't stray very far. The planes are refueled, rearmed, the crew fed and ready for takeoff on the next mission within 3/4 of an hour. Once the planes are ready to leave for the afternoon attack, the takeoff runs smoothly and quickly. The Marauders run down the strip at intervals of 15 seconds and head for the rendezvous point over England before starting across the channel. At the rendezvous point, other flights join to form a complete box of 18 aircraft, and the trip to the target is begun. As the formation approaches the enemy territory, the men adjust their flak suits and put on their helmets for protection against shrapnel and splinters. Crossing the coastline, the Nazi anti-aircraft batteries, some 10,000 to 12,000 feet below, open fire, but the formation holds its course to the target. The bombardier, who is also the navigator on the B-26, snaps his switches, and once more it's bombs away. The target on this mission was another twin-engine fighter airfield in Holland, only a few miles from the German border. This field was one of several bases from which Nazi planes have been raiding London. Runways, dispersal areas, hangars, bomb dumps, and barracks were hit. trip back, the planes are again subjected to heavy flak. Two Typhoon fighters come alongside to guard any damaged planes on the way home. This B-26 was hit, and with one engine gone, begins to fall out of formation. England and the home field look mighty good to the men after completing a double-header day over Nazi-occupied Europe. Somewhere in England, an inspection is held of a station of the 9th Air Force Troop Carrier Command. A number of distinguished guests were present. A special demonstration of paratroop and airborne infantry maneuvers was staged for this review. Over 1,000 paratroops participated in the demonstration. The men shown here may spearhead the European invasion by striking the first blow behind the Nazi West Wall. Just prior to this demonstration, the 9th Air Force Troop Carrier Command combined with similar British units in a large-scale dress rehearsal for D-Day. The paratroopers were dropped from about 400 feet. The men pour out of the transports as quickly as possible, and in a matter of seconds, a well-armed, powerful striking force is on the ground, ready for action. Watch the center of the screen. The lines of two parachutes have become entangled. However, no serious injuries were sustained. Special bundles of supplies and equipment attached to parachutes were dropped alongside the men. Various colors are used for the parachutes to aid rapid identification of paratroops and supplies. Having secured their weapons, the men rushed to take cover. Within a very short time, the entire drop zone was cleared, as would be the case under combat conditions. The 803rd Medical Air Evacuation Transport Squadron, based at Chabois, has been operating in the China-Burma-India Theater since November 8, 1943. It has 3 C-47 hospital ships assigned to it, which make 1 regularly scheduled flight to China, 2 to Burma, and 3 to Calcutta each week. In addition, an average of 3 emergency flights are made a week. The personnel table of 94 includes 24 surgical technicians and 25 nurses, 9 of whom were formerly airline stewardesses. A nurse and a technician form a flying team, going into combat zones and working together as a unit. When not on flying duty, the team does maintenance work on equipment or works in supply rooms or dispensaries in the area. This ambulance plane is preparing to take off from the Chabois Strip. It is the first airplane in this theater to be so conspicuously identified as a hospital plane. It stops at the Xinbuyang landing strip at the northern end of the Hukwang Valley in Burma to take aboard Chinese casualties of the fighting on the North Burma front. Among the casualties was one American, a liaison officer with the Chinese troops. Jeeps converted to do ambulance work bring the casualties to the airstrip where they're transferred to the C-47. The hospital plane can accommodate 18 litter cases or 24 ambulatory cases. From the middle of November 1943 to the middle of January 1944, the squadron evacuated 481 cases. The casualty ratio has been 1 litter case to 7 ambulatory cases. The ambulance planes are so equipped that all nursing procedures may be performed in flight, and in extreme emergencies, even surgery is possible. At the time these pictures were taken, the Xinbuyang Strip was only a half hour's flying time from the front lines for a C-47. The hospital planes also stop at the Taifa Ga airstrip, some 22 airline miles to the southeast of Xinbuyang, and at the time, the most advanced base in North Burma. Chinese and American battle casualties are taken aboard. With the exception of a few liaison officers, these are the first American casualties on this front. These men were wounded in the battle for Mai Quan, which is about 13 airline miles to the southeast of Taifa Ga. They have already received treatment at the 25th Field Hospital, which is also known as the Foreign Legion Staff Hospital, and are now on their way to a base hospital in the rear. L-4s and L-5s also bring wounded directly from the front to the Taifa Ga Strip. One of these small liaison planes landed about 300 yards behind the firing line to evacuate casualties. In spite of severe leg wounds from shrapnel, this soldier continued to man his gun until forcibly removed. He was to be recommended for the Silver Star for this action. This is his canteen. Filled to capacity, the C-47 takes off for the return flight to Chabois, about 1 hour's flying time. To make the same trip by jeep, when the Lido Road is in good condition, would take approximately 3 days. During March, the 13th Air Force continued to bomb the Rabaul area. The town itself was hit on March 8th by liberators of the 371st Squadron of the 307th Group. The bomb run was made at 16,100 feet. Anti-aircraft was strong, but no enemy fighters offered interception. Storage areas were the principal targets. Our bombers struck at supply depots in an effort to destroy the means of subsistence of enemy ground forces. On March 12th, the town was hit again by the 371st Squadron from an altitude of 17,000 feet. Ack-Ack was fairly strong. On the following day, the 394th Squadron of the 5th Group made a bomb run over the town at 17,500 feet. The Rapapo Airdrome was attacked on March 15th by unescorted B-24s. They dropped 500-pound bombs on the installations. Moderate anti-aircraft fire was encountered. Direct hits were scored on the runway. On the same day, Rabaul proper was also hit by Liberator bombers. Because of the continued attacks, few, if any, structures remain standing in the town of Rabaul, according to recent photographs. The enemy drome at Bunakanau was hit on March 20th. During this month, very few planes were observed on the ground at the airfields near Rabaul.